Hi, my name is Kevin Lee, Customer Experience Manager for Stage Precision. Welcome to this webinar for the introduction of SV Grid Studio. SV Grid is the first truly unified platform for real-time control and automation. It's the foundation for building, deploying, and managing experiences like never before. Whether you're in virtual production, interactive installations, or live performance, SV Grid gives you the power to connect every element, every device, and every data point seamlessly in real time. So in this roughly 1 hour session, we're going to go through what you can do with Grid Studio, and with some actual examples, I'm going to show you how you can get started. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Here is an example project loaded into Grid Studio. Grid Studio is a unified platform for intelligent control. It is the central data aggregation for your entire AVLM stack. Grid Studio integrates with different devices and sensors, monitor the data that is coming in, apply logic onto those signals before sending that back out, or use Grid Studio to convert that into another protocol. You can see we have a 3D visualizer that allows you to create a digital twin of your venue. This is helpful to understand the space that you're working with. But it is also a way to calibrate different sensors, for example, 3D LiDARs or 2D LiDARs, or tracking information, and also visualize that tracking information that is coming in. You can use Grid Studio to build customized user interface like this. That can be either a dashboard or a final user interface that the end user is interacting with. These can be viewable from multiple different devices, including a browser. If I bring over the browser, you can see I can actually interact with this user interface, load into the different pages, and these sliders are actually interacting directly with the Grid Studio engine directly. So these are in real time being reflected back into the engine, or information from the engine can directly be replicated through the web browser here. Or from the backend perspective, you can use it to actually monitor the health of your system, what's online, what's offline, and react accordingly. So this is a quick summary of what Grid Studio can do. Now, let's go deeper and start using Grid Studio to do something practical. So the first time when you open up Grid Studio, you are greeted with this landing page. On this landing page over here on the right-hand side, you have a templates and tutorials sections. There are a variety of different template projects that we have built already. So you can access these. They are deep dives into very specific topics. So there are ones that talks about the timeline. There are one that talks about the maps in and out system, how to do a PDZ following, how to do light tracking, for example. All of these things are, you can, if there's a topic that you're interested in, you can right click on that and then actually download that file onto your system. And then you can open that project file up. Often in these template projects, we have added notes into it just so that we can explain to you how we've built that project, make it easier for you to then jump into it and poke around and look at the different places that what we've built for you with those template projects. And then on the bottom, we have some tutorial links. So these are just external links. In this example here, this is a YouTube tutorial just explaining how to create a widget from scratch. So these template projects and tutorials, as we are adding more of these things and building more of these assets for you, you can actually get the latest updates without having to download a newer version of Grid Studio in order to have access. These are live and they just have access. They're just pulling it from our server. On the left-hand side of this landing page, you can see that there are a list of most recent open projects. So you can have quick access to some of the projects that you have opened recently. If that's not on the list, you can always come in here and actually open up a specific project and find where that project is. And then also you can come in here, then of course, create a blank new project. So which is what we're going to do. So we can come in here, add a new project, come in under, I'm just going to place it over here. And I'm just going to open up the demo project. Cool. So this is what the overall layout would look like by default. When you mouse over some of these window sections, the bars, you can see that there is a white bar that shows up that tells you that you are now hovering the handle. Then you can then actually drag these windows around to resize some of these windows. It's a great way to just lay out how you want. These windows, you are free to move them around. Another way to just overall resize the user interface is under the file preference, under interface, there is the option for global UI scale. By default, it should be at 100. This because I have a rather small or high DPI screen, so I've just scaled it up a little bit just to make it easier for everyone to see. So you are free to scale this up and down. It can be useful, especially when you are using a different DPI screen, and you can just adjust that without having to change your screen resolution. So we can then look at some of these different windows. We can move these windows around by clicking and dragging from the tab at the top. As you're moving these windows around, you get shown by these light gray boxes that are an indicator as to where it will be placed. So if we drop it over here where it says on the left-hand side, it will drop that window over there on the left. Or if you place it directly in the middle, you see a big gray box in the middle. That means it will place it exactly in the same window, just creating a different tab, just like that. So you can move these windows around. Depending on what you're doing with your project, sometimes you would want to have a different view. So maybe I want to have front and center, for example, the viewport. And we've created these different layouts for you. So under view layouts, there is one, for example, the viewport. So you got this right in the middle. There is another one, which is the board. So you're working mostly on the board. This is front and the center. You can move these around, just like I said before. And then when you have designed a layout that you like, you can then just save that as a preset, and then later on come back and load that preset when you, for example, load a brand new project and you created this layout before, you can then just load that preset for the layout again. So let's load back the default, and now take a look at in depth as to what all of those windows and what they do. On the left-hand side, we have the project tree. The project tree is the location where you are going to be adding all of your objects, whether they are sensors, cameras, meshes, just a cube, or I/O connections, connections to other media servers, devices, sensors, or they could just be variables that you just want to store on your project to have quick access to. They all go under the project tree. As opposed to if someone is coming from SP version 1, previously they were separated into objects, connections, and pool. Now we've just consolidated all together, just make it easier. You don't have to remember what is where. You just create all from the same project tree. So it's much quicker, and also you have better way to sort of organize. Maybe you don't have to, for example, previously you might have to duplicate the sort of same folder structure in the connections and the pool and the objects. Now they can just be the same project folder, and you can mix all of those things into the same folder and organize it the same project tree. Over in the middle, as we've mentioned earlier, we've got the viewports on the bottom here. This is the 3D visualization area. By using the mouse, you can left click and drag to sort of rotate around a pivot point. You can middle click on the mouse button and pan around to sort of pan around. The right mouse click, drag that up and down to zoom in and out, and that is the same as using the mouse scroll wheel to scroll up and down. If this is not what you want to how to navigate, we now have a new way of navigating, which is more similar to a first-person shooter game. So this, by switching over to this tool, now you can use the keyboard WASD keys to move around. And of course, the W key is to move forward, S key is to move backwards, A is left, and D is right. And you can, of course, utilize the mouse by clicking and dragging to direct where that camera is orienting and aiming, and hence the direction that it is moving forward in. So that's another way of just moving around in the viewport. There are these other tools as well. So the next tool is just helps you to create these handles to make it easier to scale an object up and down on its X, Y, and Z axis. And the one next to it is the tool to help you rotate an object around its X, Y, and Z axis. At the top here, we've got the board. As we mentioned, this is, as we shown earlier, that's the place where you can create your dashboard, your user interface, or also nodes, and where you can actually create a node-based system to add some logic on top of that to manipulate some of the data. We also have a timeline. So you can use the timeline to start sequencing things, putting triggers and actions in the timeline. So then when you then play the timeline, when it gets to the playhead gets to that specific time, that action will get fired off. As you can see in there, we also have a big red recorder button. So you can also use the timeline to then record data as well. And this is for about recording, for example, tracking data, and then that will have be recorded on the timeline, and you can then play that data back later on as well. You can also use this timeline to then also synchronize to a time code and have the time code, if you're receiving time code and the tracking data, to be synchronized together through the timeline as well. Over on the right-hand side, we have the inspector. We've roughly shown that earlier when we were changing the GUI interface scale. But this is the inspector, and you select any object and it will highlight and show you all the properties and options available for that object. And in the log message window, this is where you get the log for anything around about your projects, any objects that's thrown, any log messages, or you can also write log messages yourself to help debug what is going on with your system, for example. There are other windows available as well. So if you click on Review, here are a list of all the different windows. We're not going to go through all of them, but just so that you know, if you by accident close one of them, you just come in here and let's say you can then create a viewer window, and this is how you create this new window. So you're free to then design what makes sense and how your layout best works for the project that you're working on.